association. So now we are going to have an interactive session which is director of a Stammering association of other country. And what is the this country that you will know after coming there. It will be an interactive session. Lot of activities are involved. Enjoy and participate fully. And there is an issue that if you have any asset issue, so please tell us because this is a foreign participants. So there maybe you cannot. I think if you have any problem to understand that lesson, so you please inform us. So we will speak and then we will translate that. Okay. So now I would like to invite Mrs. Silpa Sagwal, who is the coordinator of WWS, to introduce the next guest speaker.
वो अभी तक ऑनलाइन नहीं आई है. Hello again.
She still haven't joined. I missed the same link.
Same link को एक बार send कर दो. Words नहीं है. MERP said है.
Hey, good afternoon.
Yes, join, right?
Hi, Pam. Are you able to see me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Hi, Pam. So, good afternoon, all of you. So, I would like to introduce our next guest speaker. So, she is Pamela Mertz, and she is a person who stutters, and she is very active in global stuttering community. She is on the board of the directors of the National Stuttering Association in USA and serves as chair of both the Employment Academy and military support teams. She also serves as secretary of the International Stuttering Association, and she has been a stutter social host for 5 years, and she has been writing about stuttering for about 9 years. Also, she holds a very special podcast for women who stammers, and she has interviewed women across almost all of the world. So let's, with a big round of applause, welcome Pam.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you all today, this afternoon, and particularly honored that a country and an association such as TISA, which does so much to help people who stammer, make it okay, that you all invited me to be part of your conference. So again, I'm honored and really happy to be here today with you. So my talk today is going to be partly interactive, just so you all know. I'm going to break the talk up into 3 parts so that I'm not talking the whole time, obviously. So I'm doing it selfishly for my purposes so that I can hear from you, and so that we have some interaction as we go through. So I grew up learning to hide. As soon as I realized that there was something wrong with how I spoke, I determined that I wasn't going to let anyone hear it being stuttering or stammering. If they didn't hear me stutter, I wasn't different. I could blend in. The thing was, I didn't really know how not to stammer. So I learned to hide it. I either didn't talk at all, or I figured out ways, which maybe some of you have experience with. I figured out ways to switch words that I thought I would stammer on, even when doing that made me feel and sound silly. I did it anyway. I was learning to hide me, and I did it. I hid me. And it quickly became just what Pam did. I hid how smart I was, how I felt, what I wanted to do and be. I never showed my emotions or asked questions or even let anyone know that I was curious about the world around me. I let people think that I was distant, uninterested, uncaring. I always felt like such a fraud. I did figure out at some point that writing was far easier. I didn't stutter when I wrote. The words just flowed. And it became one of my strengths. I always got good grades on papers in school because I didn't have to talk. And that's why I took to journal writing when I was younger, and then have continued that as an older, I'm not old, but as a more mature person. That's why I've continued blogging. I also figured out that being quiet and observing the world around me made me a really good listener. And I'm going to circle back to that in just a few minutes about the listening. And I learned to keep my deepest thoughts and my what ifs and my dreams secret. Let me tell you about a moment that I had when I was in college. Some of you look young enough that maybe college wasn't too long ago, or maybe you're still in college. But in my third year of college, I had to do a presentation in front of the class. It was a small class, about 20 students and the professor. And I had been obsessing about having to do this talk in front of the class for weeks. And I had let my anxiety about it build to such a point where I was making myself sick over this. So I finally found the courage to go to the professor and ask if there was some other way that I could let my knowledge of the subject matter be known instead of presenting in front of the class and her. And she said, no, you either do it or you take a 0 for the class. So I felt forced into doing something that I was not ready for. But I did it because I was conscientious and did not want to take a 0 and ruin my grade. And every word that I spoke for that presentation, I stammered on. And every time I looked up, I remember the pained expression on my classmates' faces, like they felt sorry for me. And I glanced over to my professor, and she had the same pained look on her face. When I finally finished, I had tears in my eyes that were starting. And I was not going to let my class see me cry and break down. So I ran out of the room and went into a bathroom that was right next to the classroom and had a panic attack. All alone, sitting on a toilet, breathing into a brown paper bag. I felt alone and abandoned and humiliated. But the worst thing, nobody came to check on me. And that has stayed with me for years. That was partially the reason that I really chose to take a deep dive into hiding my stammer. And it took 20 years from that moment in college and lots of other aha moments for me to begin to see I want it to be me. I want it to be Pam. Thank you. I wanted to be the Pam that deserved to be. So I began searching for ways for Pam to come out. And actually, that way found me. When a person finds their voice, they take on grace. I am graceful. You are graceful. We are all graceful. Every one of us here today has a voice that is meant to be heard. And I'm sure you've heard this already through your wonderful conference. So I hope this is emphasizing for everybody in the room. No matter how that voice sounds, whether it shakes or falters, whether it's female or male, it deserves to be heard. I want to share with you a favorite passage of mine, and then we'll probably take a couple minutes to break because I'm going to want to ask you what you think. But this has a lot of meaning for me as a person who stammers. And I hope it does for you as well. And this may sound familiar to some of you. I hope it does. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in every one of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That's by Marianne Williamson. And Nelson Mandela, the president of South Africa, shared that as his inauguration speech. And that has always meant so much to me because it speaks to what being a person who stammers is really all about. We shrink. We stay in the background. We let other people do the talking. But when we stop doing that and show our confident selves, other people around us begin to feed off that. And I think, anyway, it helps them release their fears. So how many of you can relate to that? Or what does that mean to you? Would anybody like to share?
I think Pam is. Hello. Am I audible? Oh. Hello. So, what Pam is talking about is not about fear. She is talking about power. So, yesterday when all of us did the Stranger Talk activity, so Pam, yesterday we had a Stranger Talk activity in which we were running in the streets of Bangalore in order to just talk to any stranger that we could get hold of. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that Stranger Talk activity actually gave us power. I remember I was with one guy who was unable to speak in English, but he was speaking in Kannada, and he was stopping auto rickshaws, he was stopping cab drivers in order to talk to them. So that is power. So I mean, if we stop thinking about our fears, we will start thinking about our power. So would anyone like to share about this Stranger Talk? I mean, how did they feel empowered in yesterday's Stranger Talk? Anyone?
Who will be shared first?
Hi. Yes.
Hello, man. My name is Harsh. I am from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. So yesterday I had done the stranger talk with 15 to 17 unknown people. So initially I was in a great fear that people will laugh. So my experience was so superb.
Yay.
The Thank you. So the people were very cooperative. They had listened to me very patiently. I had severe, huge blocks while I was talking to the people. The people were very cooperative. So yeah, thank you for listening to me very pay, 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 patiently, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Next, who wants to go?
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Hello, Pamela. Myself, Shrikant. So yes, as you talked about being fear, but we should actually be brave and embrace our power. So yesterday I did our strangers talk. So before this, I was actually being feared of rejections. So I mean, yesterday was my actually first stranger talk, and this is actually my first N- NC. So I was approaching people. So yes, in the start, people were actually like, no, I don't have time. So, I mean, going to more and more people and asking for their time. So I was able to talk, and so what I actually embraced yesterday was the fear of rejection. So even if people are like, no, I don't have time, I was like, it's okay. I mean, if people really want to talk to me, then they will give me their time. So yesterday I got the power to let go this fear of rejection. Thank you.
Can have this question and answers afterwards also. So, ma'am, shall we move on to our next activity?
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing those wonderful examples of the power that I referred to in my passage and the power that we all have. So this next part, I'm circling back a little to the piece about listening that I talked about earlier. All of us can and should help to change the picture of how the world around us views and understands stammering. There are things that each of us, you in the room, can do person by person, employer by employer, and community by community that will help the world see that we are just as normal, competent, and capable as the next person. We just take a moment or two longer to say what we want to say, right? And that's okay. It's always been okay. It's just that many of us just haven't discovered that yet, right? Yet being the key word. When we speak a little slower and maybe falteringly or repeating syllables, actually what happens is that people lean in closer to hear what we have to say. I have seen that happen. If we have something important to say and we actually say it, they lean in and they listen. We, people who stammer, we are helping the world to listen better. And don't we need that in the world today? Oh my God. Don't we need that? If we have something important to say, and we all do, say it. The listener will slow down, as some of you experienced when you went out in the stranger talk. They will slow down and listen to us and hear what we say, not how we say it. And actually, these become benefits of stammering. Who would have ever thought there was benefits behind stammering, right? But there is. We also become better listeners. Those of us who stammer. If we are engaged in speaking with someone and we're totally present and not spending all that energy on rehearsing what we're going to say or obsessing what they might think of us, which I used to do all the time. So when I was doing that, I wasn't hearing them because I was focused on what Pam was going to say. So I did not hear what Shilpa might have been saying. So when we stop doing that and actually listen and pay attention and then can respond spontaneously, not just with a perfectly fluent rehearsed thing that might not have anything to do with what's just said, we are now a better listener. When we listen to hear instead of just figure out how to respond, we are engaged in true back and forth conversation. And we need that today. We need to get away from our phones and texting and instant messaging, everything. We need to know how to have real conversations. So when we do that, we're at our best. We're present and fully there and engaged and sharing who we really are. Not that rehearsed crap that our inner chatter in our head has told us all these years that we should do. So those are some of the benefits. But I'm going to get into right now talking a little bit about some of the other benefits that come with stammering. We've already talked about teaching the world to listen better. We've talked about reclaiming our power. Well, you talked about that from what you did yesterday. But there are some specific awareness raising activities that I've done that I have found not only helps other people understand stammering, but it has helped me become more confident. So I'm going to share with you. Yes.
So I think it is the right time to say that Pamela is one of the most important members of NSA. So NSA is a very huge community, and as she has already she has already shared that how as a school girl she felt afraid to give presentation. Now, if we look at her, she does awareness sessions in schools, in corporate. So recently, I was talking to her. She gave a session in Goldman Sachs, New York. So I mean, we have this company over here also. So it's a very big company, and they were CEOs and HR managers there, and all were listening to her. So this is the part she is talking about. If you take an effort to speak, there are people who will listen to you, no matter how you speak it. Am I right?
Yes.
So thank you for that, for refreshing this part. So I'm actually going to talk about the school presentation first, and then talk about the Goldman Sachs experience. Is that okay?
Yeah. Also, Pamela, so our grapefruit activity is still on, right?
Yes, that's coming up in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
So Shilpa mentioned that one of the things that I do quite frequently is I go and talk to students in schools about stammering or stuttering. And I talk to kids that do not stutter or stammer. And I do that for one simple reason. When we, as people who stammer, adults, when we go in and talk to children, we are first of all showing them as a good role model what differences look like. And secondly, we are normalizing stammering for children. So they will understand it, so that when they encounter a child, or later on when they grow up to become an adult, they won't have those negative reactions, because we have shown them that it's okay. It's just another way of talking. So when I go to the schools, I typically talk to middle school age children. And for that would be like kids that are like 11, 12, and 13 years old. And I do a little story about who I am and what stuttering is, and I explain it and break it down. And it's also really valuable to the teachers that are in that room as well. We're educating them too. But I have 3 little exercises that I have the children do, which a couple of you are going to help in just a minute with one of them. But first, I ask the children to pair up with somebody that they're sitting next to, and for 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, to do some voluntary stammering. And they do it because they're kids and they're curious, and they're like, I give them permission to do that for 30 seconds. And I encourage them to try purposely stuttering on their name or whatever. And then I raise my hand usually and say, okay, stop, let's come back to the group. And I ask the children what they felt about that. And they're very honest because they're children. And they say things like, oh, it felt awkward. It felt uncomfortable. It felt annoying. It felt frustrating. And I said, yeah, those are all feelings that people who stammer get all the time, right? So they understand by just doing that very simple exercise, they understand how we feel most of the time. Then I give the children the opportunity to understand what it's like what it feels like to get stuck. So I bring a bag of these things. I don't know if you can see them, but those are Chinese finger traps. Has anybody ever seen these or worked with them?
No.
No. All right. So you can get these at a store like or Amazon. I usually buy a bag of about 100 at a time from a place called the Oriental Trading Company, and you can probably find that online. But it's called the Chinese finger trap, and you tell the children to put their fingers one on each end of the trap, put their finger in, and then pull. And all of a sudden, you can't get out. You're stuck, and they feel that. And they wonder, how do I get out of there? They look, I'm pulling, and I can't get it off my fingers. And that illustrates for them what it feels like to be stuck. And they love it. They love it. And then I give them instructions to slowly push forward the trap. So push it inwards, and then they can release their fingers. And they love it. And I also let them keep it. So, because these are only like 10 cents a piece. So I don't know what that would be in Indian money, but they're very, very cheap. And the kids love it. And we're normalizing stammering. And then I do one last exercise with the children to let them understand and illustrate covert stuttering or the hiding of stuttering. And here I do the grapefruit exercise. But here today, we're going to do the muskmelon exercise. So Shilpa tells me she has 2 melons, and I need 2 volunteers from the audience, 1 female and 1 male, to come up, and we are going to demonstrate the muskmelon exercise. So 2 people come up, please.
Come on, 1 female and 1 male.
Okay, thank you for volunteering. All right, so Shilpa, if you could give them both one of the muskmelons.
Is it okay?
Yes, please. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're perfect. Perfect. So give each person a muskmelon. And can the female come a little closer so I can see you? Thank you. Thank you very much. So what I want you to do is just toss the muskmelon back and forth in your hands, like from one hand to the other. Just toss it back and forth so you can get a feel for it. Is it heavy? Is it heavy?
Yeah.
All right. So just, so feel it. Feel the weight of it. Feel the texture. How does the skin feel? These are the things that I ask the children to do. So, would you be comfortable carrying that around with you all day at school or at work? No. So this is what I want you to do. You can stop tossing it back and forth. Both of you are dressed appropriately. What I want you to do is take that muskmelon and hide it somewhere on your body that nobody can see it.
So Pam is asking them to hide the muskmelon anywhere in their body if they can.
Right. Under your t-shirt or you know, anyway, hide it somewhere on your person so nobody can see it.
But I think though we try to though we try to hide it inside the t-shirt or anywhere, I think this will be still a very visible.
Exactly. That is the point. That is the point exactly. And the children, when you do this exercise with them, get it immediately. They try to hide it under their sweatshirt, in their pant legs. They try to put it in the back of their t-shirt and turn around, and then I make them turn around, and anywhere they put it, because that's big, right?
Yeah.
That is a perfect illustration. Tell me if I'm wrong. Perfectly illustrates. We think we may be hiding our stammering, but the world can still see it, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for volunteering. Thank you, Shilpa, for getting the fruit. So it's a great
SHGT, because initially this activity is called grapefruit technique, but I know it's weird to Pam because and I communicated to her that in India it's tropical and we do not have grapefruit in our country, so we just figured out about oranges, about papaya, but then we figured it out to balance. So thanks to Bangalore SHGT for arranging this.
So again, thank you. And that is a very easy thing that you can do with kids. So when you go to a school, and I encourage all of you to do this at some point, because it helps you too. But call up a school, ask them if they'd like a free guest speaker. Schools will love that because you're not going to charge them. And you're going to teach children about differences and diversity and acceptance by making stammering normal. And when you make it fun, like we just had, the children will respond to that. And they'll remember the muskmelon exercise. So hopefully, when they meet a child or an adult that stutters, they won't care. So the other awareness raising activity, which Shilpa already mentioned, is the Goldman Sachs mock interview days, which was amazing. Let me tell you. We've done it twice now in the New York City office of Goldman Sachs. And I'm sure you've all heard of Goldman Sachs. They're huge and they are worldwide. And we did it in August of 2017 and again in August of 2018. And basically, Goldman Sachs agreed to have one of their 2 community volunteer days that they do every year, devote one of them for any employees that were interested to holding interviews for people who stammer, to give people out in the community real practice with people in influential positions, real practice with job interviewing. So there was both times there was between 25 and 30 employees that signed up to be volunteer viewers. And both times I went down to New York City. It's about 3 hours from my home. I took the train. And in the morning, we did a stuttering stammering training session with the volunteer employees. And as Shilpa said earlier, these were CEOs and human resource managers, IT managers, finance analysts. I mean, these were the big shots in the company, willing to spend their afternoon giving people who stammer an opportunity to practice something that is very stressful for people who stammer, right? Job interviews can be very, very stressful. So in the morning, we did that training session and we told the employees that were volunteering all about stammering, stuttering, what it was, what it's not, which is important to do. So we spent about an hour and a half teaching the employees that were going to meet with people who stammer later in the afternoon about how to interact with somebody who stammers. And then during an interview session, because some of them had never met somebody who stammered. So we wanted to emphasize things like just be normal, react like you would to anybody who is speaking, maintain eye contact, be respectful, be patient, etc. They had wonderful questions. People wanted to know, well, what should I do if the candidate is blocking? Should I finish their word for them? And that was an interesting question because I personally don't like that. I don't want somebody finishing my words for me. But some people who stammer, they don't mind. If they're in a real block, sometimes it's just easier to let somebody else finish it. It's up to you how you care about that. But we told the people that we're going to be interviewing, just ask the person what they need or want to be at their best. That's it. Just ask. How would you like me to respond if I see you struggling? So it was great to engage like that. So then we broke for lunch. And then in the afternoon, we had 30 people who stuttered from around the New York City and surrounding areas that had signed up to come to Goldman Sachs for the afternoon and have the interviews with these employees of Goldman Sachs. So we had a great big room set up. Each person had the opportunity for 2 interviews for 30 minutes each with 2 different people and a feedback round. How many times have you applied for a job and you didn't get it and nobody tells you why? Nobody tells you anything. So here we built in that feedback round. And I'll tell you, it was wonderful to see higher ranking business people who are fluent engaging comfortably and respectfully with people who stammer. And last year, in the 2017 version, the first time we did it, Goldman Sachs actually offered 2 people a job out of that. 2, that's amazing because these were just mock interviews. So this year in 2018, again, it was just as successful. I helped Goldman Sachs with a lot of the logistical work, the registration, the behind the scenes stuff. And they took care of everything else. Each person coming in had a name badge. They were expected. There was a place for them to be. At the end of the day, Goldman Sachs did a presentation to the rest of us, all of us at that point, about why diversity and inclusion is so important in their workplace. And they had a couple of people on this panel. One was in a wheelchair, one it was deaf, one was visually impaired, and one was a gay man. And they just talked briefly about their story, what it was like when they first came to work at Goldman Sachs, and how welcome they felt. Their difference did not make them feel excluded at all. So we need to do more of these things, because stammering needs to be part of those diversity and inclusion activities at workplaces. So at the end of the day, I asked a couple of Goldman Sachs employees, why were you here today? Why didn't you go volunteer to go paint a house or work at a soup kitchen or something like that, like a lot of other employees did? And like several people said, this was more important. This is real. This is people's lives. I felt like I could help. I felt like I could make a difference. And boy, they did. They made a difference. And Goldman Sachs is now so much more aware of how we as people who stammer, can fit right in to their culture of employment. So in the United States, we're going to do many more of these. If any of you follow the National Stuttering Association on Facebook or Twitter, do, if you're not. And you'll see next year in 2019, we are going to be doing a lot of workplace advocacy initiatives. Personally, 2 weeks ago, I sat down with the CEO of my company and told her all about stuttering. I have never done that. This was the CEO of my company. And my philosophy was, if I am going to be reaching out to other employers, asking them to put stammering on the map, then I need to be comfortable going to my own employer. And she received it. She's a PhD, a doctor, runs the whole organization. She took 45 minutes to listen to me, and she was completely behind it and has told me that she will have their PR department run a story on stuttering in the workplace in January. And that is going to be huge for me, because I've never had the guts to do that with my, other colleagues know that I stutter, but I'd never dreamed that I could go and talk to the CEO. So you can do it too. Find Goldman Sachs in India, or find other big companies that have diversity and inclusion programs. And we, as people who stammer or stutter, we need to be saying, we're here. There are people in those companies that already stammer, right? The employer probably just doesn't know it because we try to hide it.
Yes, yes, of course. Just imagine going for a mock interview and you bag a job in Goldman Sachs. And this is a dream, I'll say. So yeah, actually, just before your session, Pam, there was a session about entrepreneurship, startups. So
Oh.
those people who still wants a job, so please reach out because there are many people who stammers and are placed in a very good position in one of the top companies. So I think it will help us all if you also spread the word about diversity and inclusion about your in your respective offices and at your workplace also. So Pam, is it time for yeah? So to be accurate, we have another 30 minutes or so, right?
Yep. So I have a part 3, but I wanted to see at this point if anybody had any questions or feedback. You know, take about 5 or 7 minutes here to do that because I can't talk all the time.
So like anybody wants to ask her?
Does anybody think that they could go to a big organization and ask to have something like that happen? And if not, why not? Okay.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself is Vinod.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. After I saw this session, I had one plan that in my organization, I speak to my manager like that. If in that case, how can I approach them? Hello?
So can you repeat that?
Yeah. I'm going to join the CTS a couple of months. It is about after 6 months. I have a plan that in the CTS we build a self-help group like that. For that, I need to know the people who have stammering. For that, I need to communicate with the employment history development team. I'm sorry, employee history department team. For that, how can I approach? Because it is in the organization level.
Mm-hmm.
I need to build a SHG team within the organization.
So we're so is he asking me how he would go about doing that?
Yeah, he's asking you how to approach his manager in case he wants to start a SHG or a selfie group in his organization.
Mm-hmm. So I would suggest that you do it exactly like I did it. I sent my CEO an email. That was the best way to get in touch with her. We're a huge organization. Well, not huge, but we have 500 employees. And the best way for us to communicate from the top down is through email. So I sent her an email saying I was very interested in diversity and inclusion, and wondered if she would be interested in having a conversation with me about how we might increase that in our workplace. And that's all I said. And I think she was very intrigued with what I might bring to her. So I would suggest that you start there. Send an email like that, saying you're very interested in increasing the diversity and inclusion in your workplace, and you would very much like to talk to that individual about an idea that you have to improve diversity and inclusion. And then I'm sure that person will respond, and then you set up a meeting time and meet in person about this.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Prashant.
Hi.
Hi. I am working in IT company. My clients are sitting in America. They don't know I'm a stammerer. How to manage meeting? I have to daily attend meeting with them. Whether should I tell I'm a stammerer or I'm thinking like they don't know about us stammering and all. So how to manage weekly meetings and all?
Okay, Shilpa, could you repeat what he asked?
Yeah, sure. So he's saying that he works for a company whose head office is based in US. So he has client meetings, I think, on Skype.
Okay.
So he has some difficulty in communicating with the managers because they're they're sitting there, and also it's an online thing. So we tend to stammer when we do online interviews. I have personally experienced this. So he's asking about how does he manage it, because he does not think that his managers know what stammering is. So how to go about it?
So I would suggest, and this can be very intimidating, but I would suggest at the start of a Skype call that you simply disclose that you stammer. And if you have to, say something like, hey, I'm a person who stammers. I just wanted you to know that. I'm okay with it. And I hope that you will be too. And if you have any questions about stammering or anything that I say through the call, feel free to ask me. We have to be the ones that educate the world, right? Nobody else is going to do that. So you have to have the courage to let somebody know at the start of that uncomfortable Skype call, hey, I stammer. I'm okay with it. I hope you will be too. If you have a question, feel free to ask me.
So now I'm expecting a question from our female attendees. I mean, Pooja, I think here is she's studying, and I think she'll be having some questions. No?
Hi, Pamela. My name is. Last session, you have said that when we being a stutterer, when we talk to a person who is a non-stutterer and make them listen to us, we make them a good listener. So I think that we just don't make them a good listener. We also met them a good person. I will like to share uh, one experience of mine. Yesterday we went to a metro and I met a person, and he was an like amazing person. He just gave me his time. I think he even missed his I mean train. Uh,
Oh,
uh, yeah. Actually, we were given a task, like we have to interact with like stranger, and we have to interact with the person, and we have to record a video message telling them the view, like how we speak. So like that guy, he was so, he was so good, like the vibe I got, like he said that he don't have any problem, a person who stammer, and for him it's just a very normal. And yeah, and after that, he just gave me extra 10 minutes, and he shared his own experience. He said that it's not a person who stammer face a difficulty, a person who is very normal, who can speak good, who have everything, they also face difficulties in life. Like Kelsey, last time he met a very big accident, and he broke his spinal cord, and he was into a bed, and like so. Yeah, I just wanted to conclude that we like we don't um, we don't met a person just only a good listener. We also met a person, a good human being.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we all.
I agree with that so much. You're right. So that's the power that we have to help bring the best out in other people, right? So Shilpa, is it time for me to go into my third piece? Yeah? All right. So I'm nearing the end. So stay with me. You've been such a great audience. I'm just going to share a couple of quick anecdotes that have been very, very important and moving to me, that kind of illustrates a little some of the things that we've all already talked about here. So when I was at the Goldman Sachs Day in August, just 2 months ago, afterwards, a guy came up to me to talk to me about whatever. He had some questions. He wanted to do some follow up. And actually, he was inviting me to, he was actually from the New York City mayor's office. And he was asking me if I could do a presentation about stuttering to his people. I was like, oh my God. But that's not the story I want to tell you. While I was talking with that gentleman, another guy waited 20 minutes to speak to me. And I saw him out of the corner of my eye, but I felt that the other person that was talking to me wasn't giving me like an opportunity to like say, hey, I need to acknowledge, like it was just awkward. So, but this guy waited 20 minutes. And then when we finally had the opportunity to talk, I introduced myself. He, of course, already knew who I was. I didn't know who he was, but he was one of the employees that had done the interviewing. And he was present in the morning for my talk on what stuttering is and isn't, and what you need to do when you interact with somebody who stutters and blah, blah, blah. So he wanted me to know that I, a person who stutters, had been the most compelling speaker he had ever heard. And he just wanted me to know that. And I got I got so overwhelmed with excitement and gratitude that a fluent person would wait 20 minutes to just tell me that. And he said, I never hang around after something like this, but I wanted you to know that. Even though you stutter, and you stuttered this morning while you made your presentation, he said to me, and remember I said this earlier, I found myself leaning in, waiting to hear what you had to say. He said, I did not hear the stuttering. I heard you. And you have a way of making your words exist around the stuttering. So he wanted to know what was my secret. He said, I'm a horrible public speaker. What is your secret? I'm like, oh my God. Like, I was just like, oh, like I didn't know how to respond to this. So I started telling.
Just like out of a fairy tale.
What?
Someone asking us, what is the secret to be such a compelling speaker? It is just out of a fairy tale.
Yeah. He was asking me, how do you be a compelling speaker? And he was fluent. And I said, be yourself. Simply be your authentic self. And he said, no, that's not going to work. I am a horrible speaker. So I did tell him a little bit about Toastmasters. I don't know if any of you are involved in Toastmasters or have heard about it. Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have many.
Oh, good. Yeah. Let me just show you something. I am very proud of this. I don't know if you can see it.
She's a distinguished Toastmaster.
So for those of you that are in Toastmasters, you know the significance of that. As a person who stutters, I was the only person in my Toastmasters club that got a distinguished Toastmaster. And there was 25 people in my club, me and 24 fluent speakers. So I shared this story just to let you know that that man, his name is Jay, and we've actually been in contact since then. That meant the world to me. And it showed me how powerful we really can be when we are fully present and speaking our mind and being ourselves. I also want to share a moment that was recent. I know that Tisa has Google Hangouts quite frequently, right?
Yes.
We also have them. Well, not just here in the United States. I mean, we have a team called Stutter Social, and we also have Google Hangouts 4 times a week. I'm a host. I have been for 5 years, and actually, people join our hangouts from all over the world. On Wednesday afternoons, we do a session where very often there are people from in India that join that hangout.
Does
But
anyone from here have ever attended these hangouts? So we have,
yeah, oh,
two or three
great.
people who have attended the hangouts.
Oh, great, great. So one time there was a very moving moment in a Stutter Social hangout where there was 5 women and 2 guys. I felt so sorry for the guys. One of them was Nenad. So maybe the guy that went to a hangout knows who Nenad is. Do you all know Nenad?
Yes.
Yeah. The gentleman from Croatia?
Yes, yeah. So we actually know him from 2012. Yeah.
Good, good.
So that time we used to have hangout called daily. I mean, for the 6 months we had it daily.
Awesome. Awesome. So this particular hangout I'm talking about, there was 5 women, a Nenad, and another gentleman. So there was 7 of us. And somehow we got to talking about how the importance of pioneers in the stuttering, stammering community. And pioneers being adults who are setting the pace and paving the road for younger generations coming behind us. And 2 of the women in the hangout said, Pam, you're one of those pioneers. And oh my gosh, like the flood work started. And before I knew it, me and the other 4 women were all teary-eyed and choked up, and poor Nanad and this other guy were just sitting there like they didn't know what to do. And I was like, why don't you just leave? Because you can see all of us crying. But that was so moving for me and a real aha moment to know that what we do today is making the lives of younger people behind us who stammer easier. And for them to call me a pioneer, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm just doing my thing. But they were like, no, Pam, you don't realize like the difference that you make. So that was important. And I don't usually like to take that kind of feedback because I get embarrassed. But when somebody pays you a compliment, just say thank you. And so I thanked them. And we all need to get into the habit of saying thank you because that's okay.
Yes.
So I have 2 more things and then we're going to wrap up. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but I have been doing Shilpa mentioned it at the beginning, so we'll see how many of you are actually paying attention. I have been doing a podcast exclusively for women who stutter for 8 years, since 2010, where I posted an episode already this morning. So I have given 190 women from all around the world, 38 different countries, including India, a chance to tell their story. And all it took was asking. We all have stories, and those stories are powerful. And it's those stories that change the world. You need to let your stories get out there. Shilpa was a guest on my podcast one time.
Yeah, I mean, that was scary. I was in my college at that time, and I was not having a good internet connection, so we weren't able to do Skype, but we did a audio thing, and then I was stammering like anything. But Pam made sure that I complete my sentences. I think this is the kind of support we need from fellow stammerers.
You know, sharing your story, you feel empowered and proud. And it also helps to reduce shame and isolation. Because when other women around the world hear your story, someplace in Africa or some place in, you know, Sri Lanka or someplace in Germany, when they hear your story, they know they're not alone. That's why I keep doing this after 8 years. It's a labor of love at this point. And I would love one of you women in the audience here to consider being a guest on my show sometime to share your story. But I also want to say I have also interviewed some men on my other podcast that is not as well known. But I began to have men saying, hey, what about me? So I created another podcast called He Stutters, She Asks Him. And I am getting ready to publish episode number 25. So I very definitely focus on the women because we're a minority within the minority. Y'all know that there are more men that stammer, obviously, than women. But I did have a man from India on that podcast as well many years ago. I don't know if you all know him. And I don't know if I'll say his first name correctly. Vivek Singh. I believe he was from Pune or Pune, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah. Do we know anyone by the name Vivek Singh from Pune, India? Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, you know, that's the reach of the podcast because I've had two people from India, one female and one male. And again, it really, really makes a big difference. And when you consider the power of our stories and how that can influence another person out there who is feeling shame and isolation, just turning on their computer or their iPhone and listening to you stutter away, like Shilpa is saying, stutter away, it makes it more normal. So I just want to say again, how exciting it is to see the Indian Stammering Association's 4th annual national conference and to see women here in the audience. That is so exciting. And I'm hoping, yes, I really hope Shilpa will tell me next year that there were double the number of women. But I want to thank you all for having me today and invite a few more minutes of questions, feedback, dialogue, because I think we're almost on time. Does anybody have any final thoughts they'd like to share?
Also, we will have one last question, but also if any, I'm sure Pam would not mind if anyone has a question, then we can ask you offline through your Gmail or anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would not mind that at all. I would welcome it.
Namaste, Pam. I'm Ravi from India.
Hi.
Uh, although I think that this question should have been asked by some female PWS, but I got a thought when I was listening to you. So my question is how a female PWS in your place is treated. So are they treated in the same way as man or male PWS, or are they seen in the same way or different way? Thank you.
Pam, are you able to understand it, or shall I?
Yes. Yes. So that is actually a really good question. I think women who stutter or stammer in the US tend to be the ones that hide it more because we're afraid that we're going to be judged as stammering being one more thing that makes us inferior to men, which of course is completely untrue. But I think the women who stammer tend to be the ones that try harder to hide it. But specifically, to answer your question, a study was just done and published in the United States in July of 2018, talking about labor outcomes for people who stutter in the United States. And it shows that women who stammer working the same exact job as a man who stammers makes $23,000 US dollars, $23,000 less than a man who stutters. And that is unacceptable. So it is unacceptable. And that is why we have to change the world's view. Because I stutter, but I am still a great communicator. I hope you all agree with that. And I, stuttering or stammering does not dictate or define how effective we are as communicators. But women are treated a little more poorly in the workplace in the US than men are. But men who stammer, doing the exact same job as men who do not stammer, are also paid less, about $9,000 less. So we still have a long way to go to educate the world, but we're doing it by doing things like this, by going into companies like Goldman Sachs, by going into schools and making it normal for children so that they will grow up to be tolerant adults and that can listen. And just imagine if the world listened better, we would not have all of these crazy problems we have in the world, I believe, if we just listened better to each other. And to think that we who stammer can help people be better listeners, and as somebody so beautifully pointed out, better people. What a perfect way to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Pam, for waking up at 5 a.m. I know it's I do.
Actually, it was 4:15 a.m.
We loved having you here, and we thank you for your efforts. Have a good day at work.
Thank you, and you all have a great ending to your conference. Again, I feel very proud and honored to have been here today. Bye.